If you're a homeowner and found yourself wondering about this whole forbearance thing and don't know if you actually need it or if it's good for you, well then, today's presentation that you probably missed out on if you're not a fan on Facebook is something that will answer that very question for you.
This is the Andres Segovia Show.
Hello, friends of the Andres Segovia Show on Facebook. This presentation is exclusively for you. So, my last presentation was in regards to those that are renters that couldn't pay their rents. But if you are considered essential and you haven't been affected by COVID-19 and you're still getting paid, your responsibility is to pay your rent. Same thing would apply for a forbearance. If you find yourself unaffected by what's going on with this whole crisis, then you should be paying your mortgage. Because we got to talk about this forbearance thing. Because, well, first off, it's a term that's like, wow, what's that? Like, it's been invented. Honestly, it's been around for the longest time. It's probably been around since the dawn of the mortgage. But we got to talk about this because we need to clarify what it is. And the best way to present this is I'm going to go through a few things to talk about, first off, what it is and some graphics and things and about what's going on in the market today. Because if you're a homeowner and you find yourself facing financial hardships, then you need to know this. You need to be warned about the caveats of it, what your options are, and also if you are a homeowner that's not affected by any of this, why you should not even consider a forbearance if you don't need it. Okay, so first off and foremost, what is a forbearance? Because that's the real question. What's the forbearance, folks? Well, let's just get to the straight nitty-gritty thing here. This is, let me move my camera a bit. There we go. With this option, the forbearance, you and your mortgage company agree to temporarily suspend or reduce your monthly mortgage payments for a specific period of time. This option lets you deal with your short-term financial problems by giving you time to get back on your feet and bring your mortgage current. So that's the thing that most people needed some assistance on if they lost their job during the lockdown or if they had reduced hours because of the lockdown. And generally speaking, a lot of homeowners that I know were also business owners that the government from the federal, state, and even local level says were non-essential and were told to close. And some of them spent their life savings into the business to be able to make their living, and now they got nothing. So they had no other choice but to seek some kind of assistance because they were going to lose their home. And unfortunately, they're part of this statistic. This statistic being that more than 4.1 million homeowners are in forbearance plans now. This is according to the latest data from the Mortgage Bankers Association. This is from MarketWatch.com. And it's, unfortunately, that's a very sad thing. And I will get back to this slide thing here. But first, that was a little ahead of myself. But first, I need to get to this thing here. So you saw the mug of my my nephew. So let's get a graphic as to what all of this actually is and how it's actually affected people that are mortgage holders. So this is from MarketWatch, and we're going to watch it together. So here we go. How bad is it if I stop paying my mortgage during the pandemic?
The coronavirus pandemic is forcing many people into tough decisions. So how bad is it if you decide to stop paying your mortgage for a while? You may have heard of the CARES Act, or the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. If you have a federally backed loan, you may be eligible to pause your payments for up to a year without penalty. This may apply to your mortgage. Here's how it can help you out. You may be able to pause payments on your mortgage, a process which is known as forbearance. This forbearance can be up to 6 months, with another extension of 6 months available if you're still having a hard time. You won't accrue any additional interest during this time. The best part is no paperwork is required. Just call and ask. How do you know if your mortgage is federally backed? Some common examples are those backed by Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, USDA, FHA, or the VA. But to be sure, contact your provider. But what if you're not included in this mix? On the state level, some governments, such as those in California and Connecticut, have negotiated with banks to get their residents a grace period, however, for a shorter time. Be careful, though. Some providers might request a balloon payment of all missed payments or charge other fees. Make sure you get the details. If you have no other options, you should still start a conversation with your bank. What if you choose to do nothing? If you don't take any action and end up being late on your payment, you may get late fees, which can be hundreds of dollars added onto your bill. Then there's your credit score. Unfortunately, just one missed payment can have a negative effect on your score. That might affect your later chances of getting a loan at a good rate. The worst outcome is foreclosure, which decimates your credit score and goes in the public record. Also, you could end up with something called a deficiency judgment, where you have to pay the difference between what you owed on your mortgage and what the property sells for at the foreclosure auction. All that is to say that this is serious, but there is help. If you're not sure what to do, you can get free personalized help from the housing counselors certified by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD.
Okay, thank you, Market Watch. Let me just pause this thing and shrink this back. Okay, so that's a great presentation. That's basically what I'm doing now, just summarized in 2 minutes. But here's the big part. This part that was mentioned, the balloon payment. What kind of balloon payment are we talking about? Also known as a reinstatement or a lump sum payment. A borrower would repay the entire amount they owed from the forbearance period all at once. So keep this in mind. If you find yourself having done forbearance in the past 2 months and now you're ready to pay back, your next bill is not just the next month's mortgage dues, but also the past 2 combined. The whole idea of forbearance is that you couldn't make the payments. And even though they've forgiven you at no interest for the 2 months, now they're asking for those 2 months plus the new month all at once. This is not something that's being done for the tenants. That's why there's been landlords complaining that they don't have access to the same kind of protections, financial protections, being provisioned for the tenants as landlords, not just landlords, homeowners in general, because that's insane. Mortgages are more expensive, generally speaking, than rentals. So imagine having to pay back 3 months worth that you haven't been able to work. And if you still haven't gotten your stimulus check, or there's nothing along the pipeline for you to get, or you've been depending on unemployment that's dried up, how are you going to make 3 months worth of payments? This is where you have to sit down and talk to your mortgager, because literally, what else can you do at this point if you find yourself in that precarious situation? And I'll talk about your options here in a bit, okay? But the general idea is, should you get one? Should I get a forbearance is a question I've been asked a lot. And I think that's because I know some people that have been asking me, and I know them very well. It's not really the right question. The question is, do you need it? If you don't need it, don't use it. If you do need it, then by all means start the conversations, or you should have started the conversations already with your mortgage bank, because you don't want to wait too long. The last thing you want are late fees that you could, or dates to your credit that you could have avoided by having a conversation ahead of time. The downside and the reality of things is here that the CARES Act, as well-intentioned as it was, it had negative ramifications right out of the gate. And I'm going to let the professionals in the mortgage industry explain this a little better than I can. Once again, there's the mug of my nephew. I can't call it a mug, but what else can it be? Cute little guy. All right. Here we go. This is a portion that you'll be able to find at this episode once it goes live of the Andre Segovia Show. I believe it's around June 1st. There'll be a link to this in the description down below. You'll have access to it first before it goes out to the public. But this is where you need to know. I embedded this one from the Frank Gehry and Brian Stevens show because they did have people from the mortgage lender side to explain what's going on from people that wanted forbearance to people that didn't want forbearance and how it's affected them.
Couple of examples right here, right now, today on how this is or what is happening and why this is so important. Why don't you lay those examples on us?
Yeah, the first example I had was last month. I had a client who called me and he wanted to refinance. I'd done his purchase. I said, no problem, send it to me. He sent it to me. Of course, I did his credit. I pulled it and I called him like, hey, you're in forbearance. He goes, no, I'm not. I never went in for me, and he got a letter that said that he had never been late on a payment. Catch that. He'd made his April payment, had never been late, was still in forbearance. He got a letter from them that he had never, so they took him out of forbearance. Of course, that's not enough to take care of a lender to get a cash. We can get him with a refinance, but guess what we're not getting with? A cash out for his property with a 60% loan to value. He finally gets them to take it off the credit report, which we finally got that done this week. We still have one caveat on that. The April payment is still not reporting. We had to get a 12-month payment history showing the payment was made. We have it in underwriting now. We don't know if it's going to be approved or not, all because of a mistake. Then there was another one who wanted forbearance. He actually called me a month ago, again, previous client, same thing, said he had been begging for 3 times, called 4 people about going into forbearance, and they kept saying they would get up with him, they'd take care of him. Finally, on the 5th call to me, I'm like, let me call. I called the vice president of servicing at that lender, and that lender goes, oh, Kimber, he doesn't have anything to worry about. I just checked on it. He's in forbearance. We already made him put him there. I called him and said, you're in forbearance. He goes, I've received nothing on it. Third one, an investor, again, just last week, knew he was in forbearance, was buying a second home here. With his wife was buying it because all the properties were his investment properties. Called him. He goes, yeah, I know I'm in forbearance. I said, what do you know? He goes, just in forbearance. There's no terms on it. He goes, they said they'd take care of me later. No paperwork at all. And this just goes on and on of the stories I've heard. There's no consumer education. There's no paperwork. There's nothing. It's you're in forbearance. You're not. If you call, you're put in. It's just not proper business.
Okay. So because of the whole confusion that's happening, I hope most of you understood that, because it is affecting the credit score of individuals. That's going to hurt them big time in the long run, or even the short term, because if the interest rates stayed low, they're probably going to want to refinance down the line. And some are being hit. There's no paperwork, they say. Oh, they'll take care of it later. Yeah, but in the meanwhile, you're being struck. So I've actually gone in depth about forbearance and the misunderstandings of it in an episode of my show, the Andre Segovia Show proper. So I'll be leaving a link to that in this description for the Facebook post, so you can actually check that out, because I talked to a mortgage lender, my friend Matt Cady at Summit Lending, who goes as much as in depth as possible with this, because there's just so much that was unknown. And now we're seeing what everybody feared, that because of the misinformation, or what I call disinformation in the media, says, oh yeah, we're going to forbearance because that Market Watch video looks great. I think it's a wonderful presentation. But as wonderful as it looks and as well-intentioned as it is, that's the problem, that people understood it to be a good thing. And it's like, oh yeah, I'll just do a forbearance now because you never know how long this is going to last. And next thing you know it, automatic hit on their credit. And banks are going to look at, oh, you got a forbearance. So, oh no, that wasn't a forbearance because I couldn't make my payments. That was a forbearance due to COVID. And there's no differentiating factor there. So that's where it's harmful. And that's where I say, if you don't need it, don't use it. Because the last thing you want destroyed during this whole thing, if you can save it, is your credit. That's why in this presentation that these guys were doing, the Frank Gehry and Brian Stevens, what they're trying to get out is to urge Congress, urge Congress to amend the CARES Act due to all this confusion, so you can be protected. Because if you do need it, you don't want this to hurt you in the long run. Because this is something that's completely out of anyone's control. The government told you to stay home. They closed your business. They forced your job to cut your job. So we need them to fix this under the CARES Act. If they really do care, they need to fix this, which in the link here that I'm going to be embedding on this post is this, where you can take action. There's the National Association of Mortgage Brokers, where you can send a letter to your representative based on your address and zip code, so you can get them to amend it. So this, if you do use it, it's not going to hurt you. But because it is hurting people, we need the government to take action to fix something that they tried, the well-intentioned thing, to fix it. But anyway, I could get into a rant about that, but I'm not going to get into it anymore. We're going to finish this, because let's say you do need it. So if you do need it, let's talk about this. What are your options? You heard about this balloon payment thing. There's 3 main options that you can look into. Now, I'm not the mortgage lender. So I'm relying on what is being reported on by both MarketWatch and what some individuals in the mortgage business have been talking about. So I'm getting this information from them and I'm sourcing them. I'm not a licensed mortgage lender, so you need to have this conversation with your lender. I'm a real estate broker. I'm doing the buying, the selling, and the trading side. I'm not doing the lending part, but I'm only passing on information at the very basic, based on information that's generally available out there, and here are the sources. So one of the options that is being told and being shared, which is proven by MarketWatch, is that one, you can request a payment deferral modification. With this, the balance that you didn't pay during the forbearance period will be tacked on to the end of the loan. So that means the duration of the loan would be extended. An example that they give is that, let's say you use the 6 months of forbearance period and you have a 30-year mortgage. Now it's a 30-year and half a year. So 6 months, so 3.5 years. 3.5 years of a mortgage period. So it's tacked on. It just extends the life of the loan a little longer. Number two is something similar that tenants are negotiating with their landlords. Number two, you opt for a repayment plan where they will gradually pay off the money you owe in addition to their monthly mortgage payments. What this means is during the duration of the loan, says 30 years, and you're going to still keep whatever duration of the loan is left, everything you didn't pay is broken up and sprinkled over the other payments. So you'll be paying more on a monthly basis the funds that you did not pay. Okay? So it's sprinkled all over the other ones. And the third option is if you're still facing the hardship, once the lockdowns are over and you're able to go back to work and you're getting your income back, and after the 6-month period, and you still run into problems and you use up the 6 months of forbearance, if you have those issues, you can reach out to your mortgage lender to request a loan modification. This is basically a negotiation that you're doing with them. And you're hoping that this will reduce the monthly payment amount for the loan. But the thing is, just like we've been talking about, that the Well-Intentioned CARES Act is actually harming people's credit right now, we're hoping that as a result of COVID-19 doesn't ultimately permanently hurt your credit. And I say permanently, but you have to climb back up, but it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. Now, again, I'm disclaiming here, I'm not a mortgage lender. I'm not. I'm passing on information to you, my audience, based on the sources that I've been able to cite here. Frank Gehry and Brian Stevens, they're on the mortgage side. So this is the information that they're dispelling, and they're interviewing professionals in that field. Also, MarketWatch. These are 2 articles that I pulled from to share with you. So it's not Andres the broker coming over you to talk to you about loans. I'm only giving you informational stuff to help you during this time of crisis, just like I did with tenants. So please don't think I'm associating things. I'm disclaiming as much as I can here. I'm not a mortgage lender. So I'm encouraging you to talk to your mortgage lender. So don't go to them and say, hey, Andres said this. No, it's like you looked into it and you read about this, and have a conversation with your mortgage lender, okay? Over 4 million people right now are skipping their mortgage payments. I hope that you're not one of them. So that does it for this presentation that I wanted to give you about clarifying the forbearance thing. Check out my episode where I do talk to Matt Cady, a licensed mortgage broker, to talk about this too, and trying to clarify things like crazy. And that's a little bit dated now, but it still stands. And in combination with this, we're hoping to find an end to this, because we need the industry to be saved, essentially. But again, urge the Congress to take action to amend the CARES Act. And that link will be available at the post and the post on the main show at www.theandresegovia.com. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.